Hey guys, I'm Joe Stone and this is the Church of Joe Stone podcast. Today we're going to be doing our compilation show where we take the best TikToks of the last week and we put them together in the compilation and we let them play. This is like the fan favorite segment, so I hope you enjoy it. And I'm sorry that we haven't posted this in a while. I've been working on revamping the show and taking it to the next level, especially with all the growth I've had on social media this year. So thank you for bearing with me and just being a part of the process and a part of the family and watching as we grow and get through these situations. But the podcast will be relaunched in March, pending everything going correctly. And I hope you enjoy everything that we're putting out. So thank you so much for just, being here and being part of the Church of Joe Stone family. As always, you can message me on Instagram, any comments, concerns, questions, or feedback about the podcast, since you can't really do it in the app. And if you don't mind, rate us 5 stars on whatever app you listen to the podcast on. It does mean a lot. It helps us grow a lot, and it shows these platforms that you love what we're creating. So thank you for doing that in advance. And without further ado, enjoy. Am I the asshole for giving my son's new bike away after the prank he pulled on a girl he was friends with? So recently I found out my son Jacob, a 15-year-old male, pulled an incredibly cruel prank on one of the girls I'll call Ashley that's in his friends group. I know this girl. She's been to our house and even attended Jacob's birthday party a month ago. She seemed incredibly sweet, if not a bit shy, so when my oldest son Mark, a 17-year-old male, came to me and told me that Jacob had asked Ashley out on a date as a prank, I was stunned. I of course asked how he could know this, hoping as any mother would that it wasn't true. But Mark showed me the family tablet, which we all use, but mostly my sons do, and it seems Jacob forgot to log out of Discord. I read the long series of messages between Jacob and his friends as they mocked Ashley all through his heartless prank. I was speechless. And that's not even getting into how he was talking, like he was some thug and not a 15-year-old living in a gated community. At first, I couldn't figure out what to do or how to proceed. I'll admit, I never once imagined either of my boys would be the type of person to do something like that. But there was no way in hell I was letting this go. So after a day of thought, I decided what was going to happen. First things first, he was grounded for how long, I'm not sure. Secondly, I'd gotten Jacob a bike for his birthday, but it hadn't arrived until the day previous. And I planned to give it to him when my parents came to visit since they'd been unable to make his party. But instead of that, I showed him I knew about the prank and told him that he was grounded. Then I made him carry the new bike out of the house in closet to the car before driving to Ashley's house, him crying the whole way. I'd called her parents early and explained everything. And so once we got there, I had him carted into their front porch and ring the bell. Then in front of me, Ashley, her parents, and God, I had him give a sincere apology and gift her the bike. Even I apologized to her, saying I didn't raise my boy this way and what he did was unforgivable. I also called the parents of the other boys who were a part of this little stunt, and they all seemed rightfully horrified by their son's involvement. I felt I'd handled this situation as best as I could, and my friends agreed. Though once my parents found out that I'd made Jacob give his birthday gift away, they said that I went too far. I still feel like what I did was right, but having my parents more or less dogpile on me like this actually made me wonder if how I handled the situation was too extreme. Am I the a-hole here? You're not the a-hole in this situation. I get it, grandma and grandpa are a little perturbed and, they're trying to protect their grandson, but at the end of the day, you taught your son an invaluable lesson and something that he needed to learn early. Your actions have consequences. What you do and how you treat people matters. And if you're not ready to deal with the consequences of your actions, then you need to think twice before doing them. That's something that you can say a million times, but he's going to remember this moment for the rest of his life. It may keep him out of jail, keep him from hurting other women, or getting himself into some trouble that he can't so easily get himself out of later on in life. I think you did the correct thing, because when Jacob grows up and maybe has his own daughter, he's gonna have a different perspective if a young boy plays that kind of cruel prank on her. So no, you did the right thing, and if the worst thing that happened to Jacob was him not getting a brand new bike, well, boo-hoo, he'll be all right. Hit the follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Bye. Am I the asshole for not telling my friend about the very painful and dangerous side effects of my medicine that she took? I, 30-year-old female, have been a fat girl since very young, and last year it got to the point where I weighed 242 pounds on a 5'4" height. No matter how hard I tried to exercise and diet, they weren't enough. So I went to my endocrinologist and I started a medicine that is the new trend for obese patients. I won't give the name for safety reasons. The treatment was like a miracle. After 1 year on it, and obviously with more exercise and dieting, I am only 40 pounds away from my ideal weight. I know it sounds like a lot, but believe me, it is a huge step forward. I have never been this skinny in my life, and it shows. Enter my friend Jessie, a 28-year-old female. Jessie is also a chubby girl, not on the level that I was, but still enough to affect her self-esteem. Long story short, Jessie asked me how I did it. I told her about the medicine and the doses I used, and that was it. I thought that she would try the same therapy, but with the help of a doctor, she didn't. She bought the medicine and used it. Guys, this medicine has to be managed very carefully. You start with a very low volume and then increase it to my current one, a process that takes months. She used the full doses on the first try. Basically, she completely completely reset her digestive system, pain worse than appendicitis, projectile vomiting, explosive diarrhea, and among all that, she probably did some mild damage to her pancreas too. She entered the ER and left the hospital 5 days later. Jesse, her family, and even some of our common friends are blaming me for what happened, and she is also asking me to not only pay the money that she spent on the medicine, more or less $500, but also the hospital costs as well, as her insurance won't cover it because she poisoned herself with a medicine not given to her by a doctor. Am I the a-hole? I don't know how you could be the a-hole. If you tell your friend about an experience you had skydiving and then she climbs and she books a plane the next day and jumps out of it without a parachute, that ain't got nothing to do with you. You would expect her to go to skydiving. You would expect for her to not just hop out the plane because that's just common sense. I think it's common sense to expect someone to consult a physician before just taking some pills that they don't know anything about. You were not a doctor. You never claimed to be a doctor. You didn't tell her to do it. You just told her your experience. At least she could have did a Google search before she did this, but it seems like she just was trying to lose that weight as fast as possible, regardless of what the consequences may be or how dangerous it might be. So no, you are not the a-hole in this situation. She is. You can't account for another person's stupidity, and it's not your job to. She's an adult, you're an adult, and you didn't make her do anything. So no, you are not the a-hole again, and I wouldn't be giving her any money if I were you, but you know, maybe you're a nicer person than I am. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for leaving a bad review and destroying the life of a waitress for complimenting my husband's eyes? I'm a 33-year-old female and my husband, a 30-year-old male, birthday was several days ago. We decided to go celebrate at a new diner and invited my in-laws to join us. Throughout the entire celebration, this 20-ish waitress who served our table kept acting strange. She didn't take her eyes off my husband and threw some inappropriate comments at him and in front of us as she came and went. I was feeling uncomfortable but decided to not make a scene hoping she'd stop. But when she brought the drinks, she put them on the table, leaned close enough towards my husband thinking no one would hear, but we heard. And what she said was, "The sparkle of those eyes are igniting me. P.S. My husband has electric blue eyes." I was flabbergasted. Truly, I couldn't believe she just said that. I told her, you know what? You're being inappropriate right now and you need to stop. She then smiled and then turned around and walked away. I got weird looks from my in-laws and it was awful. I got home and left a very bad review on the diner Facebook page. The next day I was contacted by the manager asking me to specify the bad experience I had at that diner and tell him everything. I did. He then called me back and told me that their business is new and that this kind of reviews might harm their reputation, and then asked what they could do for me to take it down. I told him some consequences to the waitress. He calls me back to tell me I just fired her, but before I could take down the review, I was contacted by the waitress on my social media telling me that she didn't mean to cause any disturbance and was just complimenting my husband's eyes. But I ruined her career and caused her to potentially lose her apartment and become homeless after getting fired from the diner and being unable to pay rent. I don't respond, but my in-laws point out that I overreacted and this stuff happens too often at diners and I just caused irreparable damage to this young lady's life over nothing. Also, my mother-in-law said that I must have done this because I felt jealous of the waitress. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna be honest, you had every right to do what you did. But like I always tell people, just because you're not the a-hole doesn't mean you're being the best version of yourself in this situation. And the asshole conversation is a low bar to begin with. Like, yeah, are you technically the one that's in the wrong in this situation? No. Could what you have done been out of spite? Could you have taken a simple compliment too far? Maybe you got a hot husband and the girl thought he was cute. Was it worth you making her lose her job and possibly her apartment? No, I'm not justifying what she did. And if the tables had been turned and this had been a man and a woman in opposite situations, no one would feel any sympathy for the man getting kicked to the curb. So I don't want to play the double standard game here. She made a mistake. She offended you. She could have handled the situation better and deserved to be reprimanded. But again, is this going to make you feel any better about yourself? That's the question. I would wager no. But with that being said, no, you are not the a-hole. She is. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I am Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for letting my wife think that our son got kidnapped in order to teach her a lesson? My wife has a horrible habit that I discovered 2 months ago. We were ordering lunch on the Subway app and I told her to pick the location that has a drive-thru. That way we don't have to go inside and take the baby out of the car just to clip him back in a few minutes later. She told me it's not a big deal to leave the baby in the car, to run in and pick it up really fast. I had no idea that she had ever done this. I told her that I was not comfortable with her leaving him in the car alone, even for a minute. And she told me that she's been doing it since he was born and it's always been fine. She told me she does it to pick up food, run into the post office or pharmacy, etc. I was floored. We don't live in a horrible area, but it's also not super safe either. I told her to never do this again. She told me that she would never stop to think about the potential dangers and that she would stop doing it. Well, yesterday, as I was driving home from my brother's house, I spotted her car at a gas station near our place. It was parked in a spot up front and not at a pump, so I figured she stopped in to grab some snacks like we always do. I decided to stop and go in and say hi and get some food, and I pulled in and parked next to her. However, I got there and I was furious to find our son in his car seat, in the car alone, with the car unlocked. I don't know what came over me, but in that moment, I decided to take my son and put him into my car. He's got a car seat in there too. I then drove to the other side of the gas station parking lot and waited for my wife to come out. It took 6 minutes for her to appear. When she saw that he was gone, she looked stunned for a second and started to frantically look around and cry. I didn't let it go on too long after I saw her pull out her phone, presumably to call 911. And that's when I pulled my car around to her. I parked, got out, and walked around to my son's door and opened it to show him to her. She looked extremely relieved, but that quickly turned to anger with her asking why I took him and did that to her. I told her that she needed to learn her lesson and she promised to stop leaving him in the car and that she was extremely irresponsible. It was so easy for me to pull up and take him. No one else at the gas station even noticed. So if he really was taken, there would have been no help and it would have been 100% her fault. She proceeded to call me cruel and psychotic and tried taking our son out of my car into hers. I said no and that I would be driving him home, and I left. She came home not much later but ignored me the rest of the day. She acknowledged me today saying she wanted an apology, and I told her absolutely not, and she's the one who should be saying sorry. She's been guilt tripping me the rest of the day, saying no mother should experience the fear I put her through. Did I go too far? Am I the a-hole? No, you are not the a-hole. And not only that, I'm going to go as far as to say that you should be dying on this hill. In relationships, we always have to weigh whether or not a conversation or argument is worth the relationship, worth the trouble. In this situation, it's 100% that. Your wife is irresponsible, and not only is what she did illegal in most states, so no, you are not the a-hole, she is, and please, this is the hill you die on. You better be a better father than you are a husband this day. It's your job to protect your son, and I say do that by any means. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for hiding my girlfriend's heels before going to my sister's wedding so she wouldn't make me look even shorter? To start, I'm going to mention that I'm your typical 5'6" short guy. I hate myself for it. I'm openly insecure about it and have exhausted all solutions to fix this issue. I met my girlfriend 6 months ago. She met my family and then they embraced her right away. My sister invited her to her wedding and mentioned including her in the wedding photos. I asked my girlfriend what shoes she was going to wear, and she showed me a pair of high heels that would have basically made her look 2 times taller than me. I asked if she would consider wearing sandals instead since there was going to be photos and I didn't want to look like a gnome standing next to her. She called me silly and brushed off my concerns, which was not appreciated. The day of the wedding, I hid her pair of high heels. She has only once stayed in the apartment because she threw out all the old ones after I asked her to. She tried to look for them and really seemed to think something strange had happened. I started telling her to hurry up so we could get to the venue on time, and she ended up wearing flat sandals as a replacement. Everything went well and I gave her her high heels back when we got home. She was shocked when she saw me holding them. I admitted hiding them for the reasons I stated above, and she got mad at me and said that I shouldn't have done that and forced her to wear sandals that completely didn't match the dress. She kept saying I got what I wanted, but she will forever look awkward in those photos wearing those sandals. I do think she has every reason to be upset with me. What was I supposed to do after I made my wishes clear and she brushed them off knowing full well how I felt about those high heels? So am I the a-hole? I really thought of this as harmless and I think she might have overreacted. You are the a-hole. It wasn't harmless, she didn't overreact, and you were every red flag in the book. You have self-esteem issues, and your height isn't the problem, your personality is. I don't understand your thought process because this question tells me everything I need to know. What was I supposed to do after I made my wishes clear and she brushed them off? What are you talking about? She is not your child. You can't confiscate things or steal things or hide things from her because you don't like that she's going to make a decision that you don't agree with. That's not how being an adult works, and that's not how you are, and that is not how you participate in a healthy relationship. She is a grown woman and you literally acted like a child. So what if you didn't get your way? You want to know what you were supposed to do when she told you no, she was going to wear heels? You were supposed to accept it. Yes, you wouldn't have liked it. Maybe you would have looked a little shorter, but that's a you problem, not a her problem. And again, the fact that you made this woman throw away every pair of heels that she has, except for one, simply to make you comfortable. Because I don't understand how her owning them is the problem. So she can't even keep shoes to make her look taller than you. You need help, you need counseling, and that woman deserves a better person to be in a relationship with. I would rather be a man of small stature than a man of small character. Just saying. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I am Joe Stone. But am I the asshole for how I apologized after my next door neighbor demanded an apology for seeing me in my underwear in my house? I'm a 36-year-old female just moved into a new one-story home. I have a next-door neighbor whose name is Elijah. He's 33 years old, single, and living alone. He's an active member in the church in our area and is your typical conservative Christian. He seemed lovely and helpful when I was moving, but recently we had a fight. Every day in the morning, he'd go to the church on foot, and on the way, he'd pass by my home. I'm used to walking around in my underwear in my previous apartment and thought it'd be perfectly fine to do the same here. But Elijah started complaining about accidentally passing by my home and seeing me walk around in my underwear, which he thought was an inappropriate thing to see before he enters the church. He asked that I close the curtains on both sides, and I did, but he started complaining about catching glimpses of me in my underwear via the front glass door. He requested that I wear regular clothes and be done with this, but I declined, and we had a fight where we exchanged words and just lashed out at each other. He went to tell all the other neighbors, and then he demanded I apologize for disrespecting him and insulting him. The neighbors urged me to apologize and to do it sooner because Elijah is a respectable man among the entire neighborhood, and I should just get right with him. After getting pressured, I decided to do it while tackling the issue as well. I baked some brownies and then sent them over to his house with a note stating, "Sorry about what happened. Sorry about what you saw or shouldn't have seen, but please next time just try not to look through my effing windows and door. Here are some brownies." I got no reply from him, but in the evening, a bunch of the neighborhood ladies came to my home and scolded me for my attitude and lack of managers to speak to Elijah and what was supposed to be an apology, no less, like that. They talked about how horrible and disrespectful I had been towards him and demanded a real and proper apology, but I argued with them, then told them to leave. They're now rallying up along with the others to expose me for my lack of respect and maturity, to send such a disrespectful apology note to Elijah when I should have just given a real apology instead. I wasn't bothered at first, but now I think I messed up, escalating things. Am I the a-hole? I don't think you're the a-hole in this situation. Like, I get it. The first time, you were in the wrong. You're walking around the house, you got your blinds up, you're half naked. Maybe the streets don't want to see that cool. You lower your blinds. Now you got a glass door. At some point, Elijah got to take some responsibility for looking that goddamn way. If you walk past my house 10 times and you're tired of seeing my unmentionables and my privates, then maybe you should stop turning your head that way. I think Elijah into some freaky stuff and he wants to put the blame on you instead of having some self-respect, instead of having to exercise some self-control. You made a mistake the first time. You tried to fix it, and Elijah doesn't know how to mind his damn business and decided to not only do that, but then make you a pariah in the neighborhood over something that could have been solved between neighbors. Now, again, I don't think you're the a-hole, but I don't think you're going to win this one either. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Bow. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay the scammer kids that shoveled the snow off my driveway? I am one of the many in the Midwest hit by the snowpocalypse. I think we got like 14 inches where I live. That's what she said. I also want to preface this with I don't like kids. I don't hate them. I just don't have any experience with kids and haven't felt the need to produce any of my own. I, a 26-year-old female, work from home and received a knock at my door today. There was a group of like 4 12-year-old-ish boys, and they had shoveled my driveway and sidewalk and were now requesting payment. They expected $15 each. I was really confused because they never knocked to ask if they could shovel my driveway. They just did it without asking and were expecting to be paid. I was really just dumbstruck and kind of said, I don't have any cash, and one of them pulled up a smartphone saying they had their mom's Venmo account. Again, me just being extremely confused, I started saying that I never agreed to pay them for anything. I was going to shovel my driveway at lunchtime. If they had asked, I would have told them no. The kids got really upset and were like, "You're not gonna pay us for our work?" But again, I didn't ask them to shovel my driveway. They started yelling at me and I just kind of shut my door. Fast forward a couple of hours, their mom comes and knocks on the door. I opened it up and she started screaming at me for not paying her kids. Her points were this: it's only $60 and clearly not going to break me. Not wrong. They put in the work and should be paid. Her boys did a nice thing for me, and she was proud of her boys for using their snow day to help people, and I was being really ungrateful and going to make them turn to drugs next time. Like, yeah, if you don't pay them $60, next time they go outside, they're gonna do some crack. What? This is where I started to get kind of mad. I said that I never asked for their services and that it was nice that they shoveled my driveway, but I never agreed to pay them and they really should have asked first. She insisted that I pay them this time and they'll ask in the future, but I don't want to reinforce bad behavior. Just because they're children and people feel the need to let them get away with whatever, this is just not a cycle I want to perpetuate for these kids. You can't manipulate people into paying you for something they never asked for. But am I the a-hole? Look, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. them kids and they mama because you're doing a better job parenting than she is. You are absolutely right. What they were doing is not a good thing. It was extortion. Matter of fact, that's what the mafia does. It's called racketeering. I'm going to make you pay for the service that you don't need under threat of violence or force. And you did a great job of standing your ground and telling them no. You taught these kids a valuable lesson. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the mother wasn't in on the scam. If it's only $60, then why don't you give them to them? Because you're only doing a nice thing if it's free. So no, you're not the a-hole. They all are. And hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone. Bah! Am I the asshole for telling my brother's girlfriend that it's weird that she keeps an urn full of her late husband's ashes in their house? Okay, so this happened last night while me and my family were visiting my brother's girlfriend's house for the first time. We were all sitting at the dinner table, and I remembered when my brother's girlfriend, who's a widow, said that she kept an urn of her late husband's ashes in the house. Conversation led from one thing to another. Then I looked at my brother and asked him quietly if he was comfortable with having his girlfriend's late husband's urn in the house. He gave me a long stare, so I figured the answer was yes, but maybe he couldn't tell his girlfriend about it, fearing she'd misunderstand. Maybe? So I brought it up. Like, that's your job. Oh, okay. So I brought it up with her and told her that it was quite weird to have her late husband's urn in the house. She looked at me and was apparently caught off guard by what I said. She said that she didn't think so and that it wasn't like the urn was on display. And also she said this is her late husband's house and where the urn should be. I told her it just felt weird, especially since she had my brother move in with her and he must be feeling uncomfortable with the idea. His girlfriend looked upset and got quiet. My brother shouted, "None of your goddamn business. Shut your mouth, Elijah Jesus." I responded with, I mean, personally, I wouldn't be cool with one girl keeping an urn of her ex within close proximity. At best, it'd make me feel uncomfortable. At worst, it'd make me feel creeped out. His girlfriend then replied that I have no business dating a widow then, and I shrugged. She excused herself to the kitchen and stayed there. My brother went off on me, calling me an obnoxious asshole for making dinner awkward and upsetting his girlfriend. I told him I was just giving my opinion, but he lashed out more. My parents and I have left and told me that my brother's girlfriend was being hypersensitive, but I too went too far and upset my brother and probably sparked an argument between them, and I should reach out to apologize, but I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole? Yes, you are the a-hole. First of all, who told you to be Dr. Phil? This is not your relationship and your brother did not ask you to speak on his behalf. Now, maybe if he had told you in private about how he felt and asked you to speak up, that could be something that you could do. Nowhere in your story do you say that's what happened. You just decided your brother felt a certain type of way, then used that to attack the woman that he is moving in with in the house about ashes in an urn that belonged to the person that bought the house. Do you not understand how that's an issue? How you feel about it and your personal preferences have nothing to do with anything. Next time, mind your business, and yes, you are the a-hole. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Joe Stone.